Georgia and Tennessee, a rivalry that has spanned nearly 125 years. And there have been some absolute classics.
Dobbs heaves it, bunched up in the end zone. It's caught! It is caught! Jawan Jennings!
But flashing forward to the present, the Georgia Bulldogs are staring down college football immortality with a chance to three-peat, something no program has done in the modern era.
Only it matters is you're playing on the road in the SEC in a really tough environment. It's different, especially when you go to play a team as talented as Tennessee is.
And while the Dogs certainly control their own destiny, the Volunteers still have an opportunity to play spoiler, potentially creating chaos in the playoff picture.
We understand the quality of the opponent that's coming to town this week. Our guys understand who they are, what they're about, and the way that they're going to play, and it'll be a great test for us.
It's the Dogs and Falls in front of 100,000 plus. The drive for perfection continues on CBS.
Georgia continues its quest for the three-peat and a 28th straight win to tie an SEC record, with Tennessee looking to play spoiler. Jordan Hill and Patrick Brown are here to break down the SEC Game of the Week on CBS. The Dogs have won 6 straight against Tennessee. Last year's 14-point win was the closest it's been in that time span, but this year they enter the week as just a 10-point favorite. Now, Georgia has struggled on the road against Auburn and Vandy this season. Now they go to Neyland Stadium, which is no joke. The Vols haven't lost a home game since 2021. So, Jordan, how does Georgia shake these road woes early in the game?
You know, it's kind of funny to be talking about Georgia. You know, it almost feels like we're nitpicking when we're talking about them on the road, but they have started slow in their 2 true road games this year. Fell behind 10-0 against Auburn, sort of sleptwalked through that Vanderbilt game and wound up almost being a one-possession game in the fourth quarter there in Nashville. But I think it's as simple as coming out and starting strong. You're looking at the game last week against Ole Miss at home. Georgia was clicking on all cylinders, wound up putting 611 yards of offense up. They just need to come out. I think if they show up ready to play, it'll go a long way not only in settling everybody down, but it's going to quiet what is going to be a very loud Neyland Stadium if they are able to come out and play like they did against the Rebels.
Now, Tennessee is coming off a loss to a good Mizzou team, but the Vols only scored 7 points. That's the fewest points a Josh Heupel team has ever scored. So, Patrick, how do they bounce back here?
Well, Grace, Tennessee just has to flush that game, but they also have to learn from it, too. I think there are things to take from what happened in Columbia. It was one of those games where just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong for Tennessee. The offense had 3 turnovers. They moved the football, but struggled to finish drives in a theme that's kind of been hurting this offense all season. Defensively, they could not stop the run and could not get off the field on third down. All of those things are going to be really important in this game, and I think mentally, Josh Heupel's teams have generally been pretty good about moving on from one week to the next, whether that's a win or a loss. You know, they lost at Alabama earlier this season. That was a really frustrating game down at Tuscaloosa. But they came out the next week on the road at Kentucky and got off to a fast start and finished strong in the fourth quarter of that game. And so I think the message from the coaching staff to the players this week has been that we're better than we showed in that game in Columbia. And certainly there's no secret that what Tennessee has coming up in this game. They're playing Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, the 2-time defending champion, national champion. So it's easy to get up for this one, and Tennessee has been a better home team all season, and they need to feel better about that and come out and be more competitive in this game on Saturday.
Now, Georgia's offense returning to full strength with Brock Bowers returning to the field last week against Ole Miss. Then you have Kendall Milton coming off an explosive game, 127 rush yards on just 9 carries. Jordan, I feel like we've been waiting to see the full potential of this Georgia offense, and we're finally starting to see it. What's been working so well for them?
I think you hit on it, Grace, just the fact that they've finally gotten everybody back healthy. I mean, you look at Brock Bowers, it's sort of funny going into that game. I try to tell everybody on Dogs 24/7, hey, he may not play a ton. You know, this is going to be his first game back since getting hurt against Vanderbilt. Goes out and plays 45 snaps, has 3 receptions, 34 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, Brock is just unreal. Then Kendall Milton, I think, is almost as big as Brock Bowers because he is a big piece of that run game. Finally looked healthy. He's been hurt all season. You factor in the fact they got Amarius Mims back, the starting right tackle. The offense is just finally clicking on all cylinders because they have all the pieces they expected to have this season. So huge for Georgia to get those guys back, and it sets them up very well for the end of the regular season, and probably more importantly, that big game against Atlanta against Alabama.
Yeah, Jordan, it's great timing for Tennessee's defense. I'm sure they're thrilled about Georgia getting everybody back and having everybody back in the lineup, from Bowers to Kendall Milton looking better to Marius Mims. Tennessee's defense is coming off a performance where it gave up season highs in yards and yards per play to Missouri. And Georgia's another balanced offense that can run the football, that can throw the football. There's a lot of different weapons on the perimeter that Carson Beck has. He does a good job of getting rid of the football and is decisive and is able to make some plays outside the pocket and extend plays as well. So Tennessee's defense, they're going to need their defensive line to really show up and be this kind of dominant force it was earlier in the season. Tennessee's defensive line, that's the key to this defense. They have to be able to stop the run. They have to be able to get after the quarterback on third down. Obviously, Tennessee couldn't get off the field on third down against Missouri. Missouri was 11 of 17, and that allowed them to control the ball and control the clock and keep Tennessee's offense on the sideline. So if Tennessee's going to have a bounce-back game on defense, that defensive line has got to be able to stop the run, and they've got to be able to get Georgia in some third and long situations, get the crowd involved, and try to get Georgia off its game a little bit. But again, the Bulldogs have a lot of weapons. They're all back now, and it's going to be a tough challenge for the Vols to slow this group down.
Let's talk about Tennessee's offense now. Now, contrary to popular belief, Patrick, Tennessee's always been a run-heavy team under Heupel, but this year the run game has really taken off behind Jalen Wright. The Vols rank 8th nationally with 213 yards a game. So what's the reason for this year's success?
Well, Grace, I think you have to start with Jalen Wright. He's been really good. His progression over the course of his career, from his freshman year in 2021 to leading Tennessee in rushing last season to being one of the best running backs in the SEC this season, it's been really fun to watch. Dylan Sampson is a guy that's explosive as a sophomore. That's a complementary piece, as is Jabari Small, who's a steady veteran. And the offensive line has been able to sort of piece it together. They've had a lot of guys in and out of the lineup throughout the season, but their execution, their physicality, a lot of times has been really good. It wasn't very good last week against Missouri. Tennessee rushed for a season-low 83 yards in that game. Missouri's defensive line was better at the point of attack, and their linebackers and safeties were able to crash down and clean things up. And Tennessee's run game really never got going in that game. And Tennessee's going to need its offensive line to step up and meet the physical challenge. Georgia is obviously very good stopping the run. They always have been under Kirby Smart. Their linebackers, I know they've been dealing with some injuries there, but they just plug in fast, physical, aggressive guys there, and their safeties are aggressive and coming down and stopping the run as well. So Tennessee's struggled to run the football against Georgia the past 2 seasons, and for them to have a chance in this game, they're going to have to sort of change that trend and get the ball back rolling on the ground with Wright and those guys.
And I feel like that's really going to be the key for Georgia to take care of business on the road. They cannot allow Tennessee not only to run the ball consistently, but to break off those long runs. Tennessee is tied for second in the nation with runs of 40 yards or more. And I think that's how Tennessee's going to have to make explosive plays. You know, we've seen so many receivers for Tennessee get banged up. Obviously, the big one, Brew McCoy. We know Joe Milton's got a big arm, but to me, where the weakness is, or where Tennessee could find an ability to make big plays, is on the ground with Jalen Wright and those guys. I think that the Georgia defense is very aware of the dangers of the way that Josh Heupel's offenses line up. You've got the big splits with the receivers, leaves a whole lot of room for those running backs to make plays. You lose Jamon Dumas-Johnson a couple weeks ago. You're relying on a true freshman, C.J. Allen, to help take his place. C.J. had 9 tackles last week against Ole Miss, and for the most part, they did a very good job of slowing down Quinshon Judkins. I kind of have the same belief in this game as I did in the Ole Miss game. I thought it would take Quinshon Judkins to really run wild for Ole Miss to have a chance. I think the same is to be true with Jalen Wright and the Tennessee run game. I think they have to have a big game in order for the Vols to have a chance.
All right, 10 points is the smallest spread Georgia has faced this season, so it should be a competitive one. Jordan, what do you think the key to getting a win is here?
I think it's really simple. I just think the offense has to start fast. There was so much momentum built last week against Ole Miss. Being able to score 52 points, the way they were so efficient, and the fact that they were pretty darn balanced, 311 passing yards, 300 rushing yards. I think if you come out, if you're able to score early on, and probably even bigger than that, if Georgia's defense can just get a stop on the opening drive, it feels like Tennessee is very big on being able to score early in games. Georgia has struggled throughout the year. That might be the biggest complaint Kirby Smart has about this team on the whole, is that they just cannot stop the opponent from scoring on their opening drive. If Georgia's able to score early, maybe get that Pats stop at least one in the first few drives. I think it takes a little bit of the energy out of Neyland Stadium. Otherwise, Carson Beck and those guys on offense going to be dealing with a very loud stadium for 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, Jordan, that's a great point. I think Tennessee has scored on its opening drive, touchdowns on its opening drive in 7 of 10 games this season, and one of the 3 was last week against Missouri, where they went 3 and out after a turnover. For Tennessee, I think they've got to find a way to score points against Georgia. You know, Josh Heupel's offense has put up a lot of points on a lot of teams, pretty much everybody in the SEC at one point over the past 2, almost 3 seasons now. But Georgia's been able to hold Tennessee in check, just 13 points last season. That offense that averaged 46 points a game and led the nation in total offense, really never got going, had a lot of penalties. Really just the stage and the noise was too much for that group. And even 2 years ago, Tennessee went right down the field on its opening drive and scored a touchdown in that 2021 game. But it was a struggle from then on out, and they only ended up scoring 17. So Tennessee's got to find a way to put points on the board, and they've got to keep the crowd in this game. That's probably their biggest advantage in this game. It's hard to look across the matchups with the offenses and the defenses and say this is where Tennessee's going to have an advantage, but they're going to have a really loud crowd on their side. They've won 14 straight games at home. They've played great at Neyland really throughout Josh Heupel's tenure. Georgia was actually the last team to leave Neyland with a win. So Tennessee needs to keep that crowd in the game. A fast start would certainly help, and certainly if the energy can stay in the stadium, the team will feed off that as they have over the past 2 seasons, and that can make this game competitive in the fourth quarter, which is what Tennessee has to do.
All right, should be a fun one. And a reminder, you can watch this game on CBS or stream it on Paramount+. Jordan and Patrick, thanks so much, and enjoy your game day. For more on the game, be sure to check out Dogs 24/7 and Go Vols 24/7 for all your Tennessee and Georgia football and recruiting news all year long.